In Lesson 3, this is a series of modules that are eclectic. In all of the lessons, pick and choose what you want to do. We created a vast number of skills because what about me doesn't have one answer or 10 answers. It has a vast number of answers, and they're often complex. Our own individual pregnancy and birth situations have many, many components, and we're trying to get the best from our experience. So it's important for you to understand that self-learning these skills is important. We kind of give an analogy about when you learn to drive a car. You may have had somebody sit next to you, but you had to learn the skills. They couldn't do it. So this is your driving instructor. We're sitting next to you. You have to learn the skills. And the reason that there are skills in abundance is what I just said. Our individual pregnancy and births are very complex. And honestly, we all want to know what we can do about ourselves. We're not interested in anyone else's birth, but we are desperately interested about our own birth. And fathers are equally desperate. They don't want their partner and their baby to have a bad experience. My goodness, they're human beings. Men are. We all blink, we all cough, we can all tighten up our rectum. And fathers are desperate to know how to help, but nobody's really telling them. And since the 80s, they've been reduced from being a coach with Lamaze or Bradley, which was called Fathered Coach Childbirth, to just you making choices, making a birth plan, and their job now is just to support your choices. That's unrealistic. And we laugh at that. It's like a woman changing a baby's dirty nappies and the father standing behind saying, good job. That's not what she wants. She wants him to change the nappies. So that's the difference from him having skills or his supporting you. If you read nothing else in this, read the 2 birthing behaviors, particularly as a guy. It's just a list. If you see and hear the woman in birth doing this list, she's coping pretty well. If you see her doing that list, she's not coping well. Your job is to help her cope well. And once you can see and hear what those behaviors would look like, you're more likely to help her use them rather than to assume, well, women have always birthed, she knows what she's doing, and you leave her alone. That's not what women want. Women want to be seen and heard and helped for what goal? To feel in control, to cope, to manage, to deal with, to handle, to work through, and to stay on top of. The 2 birth plans are essential. You're making a birth plan, you're spending a lot of time thinking about what you want and what you don't want. Babies don't come to plan. Birth is not like a wedding. Birth is actually like climbing Mount Everest. And you need to have the skills to do that task. It's hard work. That's why it's called labor. Even if you're having a non-laboring cesarean, you can still enjoy learning skills because that gets you closer to your pregnancy and your partner. And then just use the skills on the way to the hospital and while being prepped and during the surgery and afterwards. Birthing Better families wanted this question answered. What about me? So we didn't leave anybody out. So when you make 2 birth plans, your second birth plan is just a list of the skills that you've learned and give them to your care provider. Ask them to include them in the notes. That means they can refer to the notes if you look like you're struggling and say, you learned this skill or this skill. Now's the time to use them. In the 1970s, when I gave birth and learned Lamaze, Lamaze was targeting natural births. So many of us, too many of us, stopped using the skills if we felt our birth was becoming more medical. That's a huge mistake. It's still our baby's birth. And often women would say, well, I stopped using them because I had more medical birth. Birthing Better families will tell you, use them more. If your birth just goes pear-shaped, it's you that has the choice of how you behave, how you cope, whether you manage, how you deal with it. So we want you to know that your second birth plan of skills birth plans helps your care provider know that you've become skilled to birth your baby. And they'll praise you and encourage you if you need encouragement.